So yeah, I want to just kick it off. How was the whole experience for the Milestone Initiative workshop? How'd that go for you guys? I want to start with you, Ashley.
Yeah, it went really well. I think so. Initially applying, my first goal was to, I guess, build a creative community. And I think that's been the biggest takeaway with the Milestone Initiative is having this community. Seeing everyone's faces on Zoom and stuff is always such a fun time because it's oh, everyone's back. We have our group chat, everything. So yeah, it went really well.
Nice. What about you, Yasmín?
Kind of the same thing. I feel so bad because somebody goes first and I'm I'm gonna say the same thing. But I do feel like my biggest takeaway from this whole experience is the connections that we have made, and especially like meeting people on the same boat that you are and going through this journey at the same time is very reassuring, and it makes you kind of be more I don't know, have more energy and be more pumped about it because, otherwise you're alone and you don't have maybe you tell your family or your friends and they're they might not understand as much, but with this community, you definitely feel everybody's in the same boat and, we go through happiness and frustration and all the roller coasters that this industry is together. So it's that Ashley said it really well.
Cool. And what about you, Kameron?
Going into this, I didn't really know what to expect, but coming out of this program, I definitely feel like I found a new family. Everyone's just so supportive of each other, and it wasn't even just comics. If anything was happening with anyone, we'd always check in on each other, make sure each other's okay. If any one of us had any doubts or concerns about things, or even when times I was down on myself or not confident, this group has definitely helped me with a lot of things and helping me no, you can do it. Also, this group is great at reminding to take care of yourself, and I really appreciate that. So I'm glad being able to be fortunate to be in this program and meet so many wonderful people and still be able to talk to them even after the program happened.
Nice. Morgan, what about you? How was your experience?
Yeah, to echo what everybody else said, I definitely feel like I have 23 new siblings after going through the program. And I think what's great about our cohort, I think DC did a really good job of choosing everyone because, we're launching into the industry at the same time. These are going to be the people that we're working with for the rest of our careers. And I think we all really get along, and I think we all have that same creative fire from within. So I just think that's just going to be very fruitful for all of us as we move through the years, just that we kind of have this foundation with this group of people. Because I think, breaking into the industry is hard, and finding creative partners that you work with well is hard. And I think even though we haven't all worked well together, we all kind of have this shared experience. So there's always going to be this level of just connectivity that we have. So
Okay.
yeah, I think it's great.
That's awesome. And when I was talking to this different group last week, they mentioned how you guys kind of formed a community and a bond, and it kind of led me into a question of when Milestone was first created. Their purpose was because a lot of writers and artists weren't getting an opportunity in the mainstream comics industry. Do you feel like it's harder to break in back then than it is now, or is it about the same? How do you guys feel about that? And anyone can answer how you feel. Who wants to go?
I definitely think it was harder back then, just because they had to have their own imprint just to get the type of diversity and representation that they were looking for. But that being said, I still think it's relatively hard to break in. I think comics is still a very white male dominated space. So it's great that initiatives like this exist, but we definitely need more across the board. And I think it's kind of with the tradition of Milestone, it's on us to try to kind of lift as we rise as well, which I think we all kind of have that same sensibility. So
Definitely. Anyone else have anything to add to that? Okay. they mentioned that when I asked about like pitches and stuff like that, the writers seemed to say that like most of them didn't really know a lot of what other stories you guys were working on, where the artists got to see like the storyboards and the pencils for like everything throughout the whole process. Is that kind of the same for you guys? How is the process for the writers versus the artists? Yasmín, you want to go first?
You mean that we got to
like how
see like the
like the process for the writers was a little bit different for the artists. I know some of the like Jared and Jordan, they were talking about how like they didn't see everyone's work because some people were working a little bit more isolated versus the artists who got to see everyone's art as they were going along.
Oh yeah, you mean in like during the program?
Yeah.
Well, I got to, I don't know, I guess I was curious because they would put the writers' recordings of the classes, and I would just watch it and hear it. So I knew what they were working on. Like, so I don't know why the writers didn't do that, because I would have done that just to like see what everybody was working on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that is correct. If you didn't go to the recordings of each class, because the writers were in one class and the artists were in another, and we had teams, like Ashley was my partner. But other than that, if you didn't see the recordings, you wouldn't see what people were doing, like the storyboards of like, you know, those first layouts and the pencils and the inks, and yeah, you wouldn't see that if you didn't go back on it. I was just so excited, so I would just go back and just rewatch it.
I think from the writer's side, they didn't force us to show what we were working on, and a lot of us, I think, were kind of shy and insecure, so just weren't volunteering to be like, "Here's my script."
Yeah, I understand that.
Well, to add to that, that's why I'm so excited for June to come, because I've seen some of the stories fully done, but there are others where I'm like, I haven't seen it yet, so it's going to be a fun surprise for us all.
How'd you guys come up with your individual pitches and stories for the stuff that you came up for Milestone, the showcase specifically?
For me, they gave us 3 pitches to turn in, and I wanted to try to make sure I had all my favorite characters across the board on those pitches, so I could get an opportunity to write at least one of them. And if one pitch had like all the characters, I'm like, they're not going to choose this, but if they do, I get to write everyone, which will be really cool. But yeah, I wanted all my stories to, especially with only having 8 pages, to be really character based. So I tried to focus on that. And like I said, I had a pitch with everyone, and then a static pitch and a rocket pitch, and that's the one that they chose, was the rocket pitch.
Nice. What about you, Ashley?
Yeah, kind of similar to Morgan. I thought back to who I would love to write and like the story I would love to write. And I guess my first like initial exposure to the Milestone universe was, I grew up during the time of the Static Shock and Young Justice series. And I remember being really annoyed that I was super excited that Rocket was in Young Justice, but then Static never came. So I was like, I would love to write a team up. So that's the pitch that ended up getting chosen, which is understandable because I feel like I put more of my time and energy into that one. But kind of going back to like that initial like energy of discovering Milestone and then thinking about how to carry that forward into this opportunity.
Dope. Kameron, you worked on the hardware story. Was that a first choice for you? How hard is it to draw hardware? I'm curious because there's so many pieces.
Yeah, it was a bit wild because my art style tends to be a bit of, kind of easygoing. So to have someone like hardware who's so like bulking, huge, and all that machinery. And I remember I was just so nervous about it, like, oh God, I'm going to do it wrong and everyone's going to like hate me after I do this wrong. But I asked how should I go about like drawing like hardware, like even pulling out sketches and stuff. And Dennis was just like, you got this. Just draw in your style. Just draw him in your style. You know, don't care what other people think. I think you got this. Just draw him how you would draw him. And it turned out being fine. I think it's cool to be able to like experience different characters in different styles and how an artist would go to portray that character. So I think at first it was intimidating, but along the way after that advice, it became very fun.
Is there a character within Milestone or like within the DC universe that you like that would fit your style perfectly that you would love to draw?
Everyone knows what the answer is. Yeah, Ashley's smiling. I think one character I'd love to take on is definitely like Starfire.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you see my Twitter or like my Instagram, it's like a bunch of Starfire fan art. So
okay.
I definitely love to tackle Starfire at some point.
Awesome. Cool. So I wanted to talk to, actually going back to Static Rocket, why did you like kind of play with the teasing of their like little romance, the will they, won't they, Rocket kind of being annoyed, whatever, like what was the decision behind making that choice?
Yeah, so kind of going back into like my first exposure to like comics in general. So obviously big fan of like the animated TV shows. Also just like reading the comics. I loved like their dynamic. But also grew up obsessed with like shoujo, like romance, anime, like that sort of stuff. So I was like, oh, it'd be fun to like bring that sort of dynamic into this, especially with it being such a short story, like having it be like a team up, like very witty, just going through. So that's kind of where it came from.
Nice. How was it working with Yasmín? You guys partnered up obviously on this. How was it working together? You both can obviously take this.
Yeah, it was a dream. Like I'm obsessed with Yaz's art. I think like the way that she draws like Rocket and Static, just you can just tell like if you removed all the captions, all the dialogue, like it would be an amazing story just by like the art alone. And also Yaz was just such like a good like I guess like mentor in a way, like because I'm relatively new to like this in general. So like just having her to like bounce ideas off of and like be guided through the process of just I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like she was a very calming presence and I'm very appreciative of that.
In my case, it was great working with Ashley because she's new and she has like these fresh ideas and we created a character together and that was so much fun. She gave me a description and we just kind of roll with it. And I don't know, it was really fun and Ashley has like one of the best thing an artist can ask for is to work with a writer that really can make it easier for us artists. And with this, I mean that they describe something and you can really clearly picture it in your mind. And I was kind of scared because I've had experiences with other writers and I was like, oh my God, I hope that I get a good teammate. And I did. I got an amazing teammate and it was great. And I think it shows and you're way too kind, Ashley. Just wanted to say that.
Oh, love that. That's so cute. Morgan, so I have to confess, I've been excited to talk to you because I loved your cyborg, the cyborg story. Fantastic, wonderful.
Thank you so much.
But yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about your story for the showcase. You said your Rocket story was picked. How did you come up with that particular story, telling it from, because you could, in that story in particular, you could kind of have almost any hero because the story wasn't really about her, in my opinion, it wasn't really about her. It was about the people that were being affected by what happened to them and the objects.
Yeah.
So what was your decision in picking Rocket for that story particularly?
So I wanted to kind of lean into that Rocket's a writer. And like it was in Icon #1 in '93 when she tries to steal the typewriter. So I kind of wanted to kind of feed off of that and have her like, as being a writer myself, kind of explore what it feels like to not be inspired or have writer's block, but kind of know what it feels like to have that pressure on you to do something, but you just can't get it out. So that's what she's going through in this story, especially having this gifted to her from Icon, and the typewriter I had it be something super like old and like influential on its own. So yeah, I wanted to lean in on that, and then I think we haven't seen too many Rocket stories where she's by herself. I know Yaz and Steph Williams are doing that in the Icon series now, but I hadn't seen that too much when I pitched this story. So I kind of wanted to see what she was like apart from Icon, and just kind of how she approached the world. So that was my like nexus of inspiration for that story.
Nice. I love that. Yeah, I do. I often we see them paired off together, but I do appreciate stories with her by herself because she's fascinating on her own. So I definitely love that. I wanted to talk to you guys obviously about the stuff you're going to do outside of this Milestone Initiative, but the Dakotaverse, this new Dakotaverse was created because cops used experimental tear gas on protesters, and that's how these new Bang Babies were created. How do you guys create stories within this universe? And because cops using tear gas on protesters is a real life situation. It happens quite often. So how do you guys tell stories within this universe, knowing that some of the stuff does happen in real life? Anyone can go first. Yeah.
I can go first. Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. I think it's really just keeping like empathy in mind and keeping like that idea at the forefront of your storytelling, because obviously you want to tell stories that are escapism, they're out of this world, that sort of stuff. But I think what people realized about comics like early on is like kind of like what we've been talking about is character-driven storytelling is the thing that people want to read. And if you want it to be character-driven, you can't ignore what's happening in reality. So I think by combining those two, I think is probably the best course of action for kind of towing the line between those two things.
Definitely.
Yeah, off of that, I think what's really interesting to the way they updated it, being at a protest, is I think it gives a lot more room for varied backgrounds to be affected by the tear gas. Whereas in the original, it was like a gang war, right?
Yeah.
Where the police, but now it's like everyone goes to protests and anyone can be affected by what happened. And I think that yields to a lot more varied perspectives to kind of come out of people being affected by the tear gas.
Definitely. Anyone else want to add anything to that? Okay. What other stories would you guys want to tell in this Milestone universe specifically? And what would you want to tell outside of the Milestone universe within DC universe? I know Cam, you said Starfire, but anyone else or any other stories? Or what story would you tell with Starfire? Because honestly, she hasn't had a solo in so long, and she deserves one.
No, agree. She definitely does. She definitely does. And I know we recently went to a con together and paneled at it, and Ashley definitely is her blabbing on about ideas and whatnot. And especially I was interested with Earth 1 Teen Titans, where Raven was Danae. And I, being Indigenous myself, I wanted to like play on that and like work more on that. At the same time, be respectful with that, but see what it'd be like as, Starfire and Raven as a duo, And so that's something I want to tell, something I want to develop. But, yeah, I'm sorry if I'm blabbing on too much again.
No, you're fine. Any other stories within Milestone you would like to draw or tell?
I definitely would love to do something with Masquerade, especially being a Black trans mask myself. I think it's something important, especially with even back then, Masquerade is like such a wonderful character and way before his time. So I think that would be something interesting to like really work on, something I would love to work on.
Absolutely. What about you, Morgan? I know you already work on Cyborg, but what about in the Milestone
Yeah.
universe?
Well, so I'll just say Cyborg's a dream too. Like
Yes.
I was a big fan of Cyborg before I got the opportunity. So that's still like I'm pitching myself every day on that. But yeah, inside Milestone, this is probably a cop out answer, and you probably heard it before, but I love Static. That would be really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I will write anything in Milestone because I think that universe is great and I want to see it grow. Um, we created characters during the Milestone Initiative. It was just like an exercise, but I think it would be cool to sprinkle those characters in that we all
Yeah.
created. They've all got really unique backgrounds and stories that I think would be really cool to explore. And I've had in my mind for like a couple, maybe like a year and a half, of like this would be a DC or a Milestone thing, like these like one shot comics that could like be like tour guides for a city, where like
Ooh.
you have a tour guide taking you around all the different spots in the city, because like DC specifically, like the cities are like
They're like their own characters.
their own characters, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they've got their
Mm-hmm.
own neighborhoods, and I think it would be really cool to explore that outside of the context of like a crazy plot happening or whatever. And I think, seeing like a map of Dakota would be really cool. So
Yeah.
like I would love to do something like that
That's
too.
cool. That's a great idea. Love that. What about you, Yasmín?
I feel like this is also an answer, like what Morgan said, but I got to illustrate a short story with just a solo rocket, and where her story continues with the Milestone 30 anniversary. And I really think she needs a book. I do. I think she needs a solo book, and I would love to do it.
Yeah.
Just put it there. Um, and but also, yeah, that's part of the Milestone. But for DC universe, I really love Jessica Cruz. I think she doesn't get enough love. I think she has been kind of forgotten, and it sucks. But I really do love her. I think she's a really strong character, especially somebody that has, struggles with mental health, and I think I don't know. I found myself very identify with her. I have said it before in another podcast, and I think they should do more. I don't know, explore more things with the Yellow Lantern and stuff like that.
Agreed. I feel like it's interesting. Yeah, she has severe anxiety, and she's like now a Yellow Lantern. That's fascinating. Yeah. Sorry, continue. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. But yeah, basically her, because I really do think she needs more love.
Agreed.
And yeah, Wonder Woman. I would love Wonder Woman. I know I think it's a typical answer too, but yeah, she's also a dream.
Yeah.
And Teen Titans. See, I will go on. I'm gonna shut up because it'll be like a list of like all these characters that I really love and that I grew up watching on TV, like Ashley, and I think almost everybody in the Milestone Initiative. So I'm gonna shut up because I'm just gonna keep going.
No, I love it. Ashley, what about you?
Yeah, well, now I'm inspired by Yaz. I've written Static and Rocket, but I would love just a solo Rocket series. I think that'd be really fun. Non-Milestone related, I've always been like a huge fan of the Bat family. So anything related to the Bat family would be amazing. But I think specifically Stephanie Brown, like she's had a few solo runs, but I feel like when thinking about the general Bat family, she's always kind of forgotten, like as a Robin, but also as a Batgirl. And I think that would be a really interesting dynamic to explore as like a young woman coming into her own, like with her past and everything. I think there's a lot of opportunities for her. And I would love to like see her in a new solo run, or at least a mini series.
100%. Love that. Makes me excited. Yeah, since you guys are essentially the next generation, the new generation of Milestone, and you are now going through, like, you guys have gone through the workshop, you got your first showcase coming out, some of you are already working on different books. What advice would you give to someone just like you a year or two ago, like a year or two from now, like that is trying to do what you're doing? Like, what advice would you give for them? Because you guys are like literally rising stars, so you're still like kind of on the come up. So what advice would you give to someone trying to do what you guys are doing?
I can go first with this. I think one of the things that people really forget is to be patient and have perseverance, because it's a really hard journey, and sometimes you kind of feel like you want to give up because it's a lot of competition, and sometimes you actually get to the doorstep and it shuts back up again. So having, I think, perseverance and patience is key at whatever level you are, whether it be like me from 2 years ago or like me right now or in the future. Patience and perseverance with yourself, with other people, and having a lot of self-awareness too helps a lot. It's very helpful too. I think those three things I would tell.
Yeah, off that, I'd say be kind to yourself. I think it's easy to beat yourself up when you're kind of struggling to get to that open door. And then yeah, like Yas said, patience and like don't overwork yourself too. Make sure to take your breaks. I'm a big advocate for drinking water and eating breakfast. A lot of people don't do that these days. I don't get it, but you got to do that. That helps you kind of get in the creative mindset. And then as a writer, I think one of the things that I heard a lot that really bothered me, I do think there's some truth to it, but one of the things that I heard a lot when I was starting out that really bothered me is that you have to write every day. And I don't necessarily agree with that. At least not in the sense that you need to be behind the computer writing. I think writing is so much broader than just typing on a keyboard.
Absolutely.
Writing is engaging with other media, other storytelling, because that feeds back into your creative juices. So like, if you don't have it on a particular day, be kind to yourself and don't beat yourself up. Don't stress out about it. Go do something else that can inspire you to get back to that keyboard and be creative. So yeah.
And even a notebook for the old people.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Kameron?
I think I'd have to tell someone you are enough and you are worth it, because there were times before even the submission process that I was just like, I'm not good enough to be with these people. So I'm like, why should I even submit? Or like, I shouldn't submit. I'm like wasting their time. It's like, no, don't think like that. You are enough. You are worth it. And if you work hard enough, you work to it, then you'll eventually get to your goal. And also, piggybacking on what y'all said, definitely take care of yourself. A lot of the comic industry will tell you like the best is the person who produces like the most pages a day or something. And sometimes you have to go at like your own limit. Like I know people who can produce like maybe like 3 or 4 pages a day, and some people who can do a steady of 1 page a day. It depends on the person, but all of that matters, just to really take care of yourself and like not go over your limits.
Yeah. Ashley, anything else to add?
Yeah, I think I would just add like the advice that I would have wanted to hear most is if you have a story to tell, just tell the story. I think coming into this, I thought that there was like one clear path to like, I guess, getting a story out there. And I think if you have a story, people want to hear that story. So whether that is you're telling that at, I don't know, your college's literary magazine, or you're publishing it on Kickstarter, or you're just posting it on Twitter, I think that's the best experience, is to just keep telling stories that like you want to like tell, and there will always be an audience for that, and because it will resonate with people.
Dope. That's awesome. Morgan, I have to say that I saw your tweet the other day about you being called a woman, calling her she, her. Yeah. I did, when I was writing my review of Cyborg, I was like, I think Morgan's I don't know. So I did have to check myself, but I am sorry. It's not our fault that you're a pretty man. I'm sorry. But so speaking on Cyborg, do you have any crossover or like in communication with the Titans team, since those both released at the same time?
Yeah, just very minimal. Just because like it's I think it's kind of hard to do things in tandem with so many moving parts.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the main thing that at least on the cyborg side that we wanted to focus on was that among all the pressures that Vic is dealing with, that one of the main ones is that the Titans are like this premier team now,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just adding to the weight of all the personal stuff that he's dealing with. But when it comes to plot stuff, no, like it's not really talking to each other. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I was very curious about that. I think one of the things I've been seeing is that one of the criticisms I've had and other cyborg fans have had over the years is a lot of it too much focus on the machine part and forgetting about the person that's inside, and that he still is a person, like he's a person. And I appreciate the exploration of the fact that he's in therapy and he's kind of dealing with things. And so how did you pull, like, how did you decide to like really make that the story, like make that the focus instead of what has commonly become Cyborg's story?
Yeah, I think it comes from me just being a fan first and kind of always wanting more from the character, but never really getting it. He's always just been that guy in the chair,
Mm-hmm.
or the guy who's like incapacitated within the first 3 panels, and then he's never in the story anymore. So I wanted to give him like agency. I think that was my main thing. And yeah, I do think it's important that, I think from my perspective, Cyborg is a hero with a disability.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more, I'm leaning in more of like that these are prosthetics than they are, that he's a robot.
Yeah.
'Cause I think that's more of an in for real life people to kind of resonate with what he's going through. So that was kind of my inspiration from that. I have a bleeding disorder myself that's a physical disability, and so I get to kind of write from my own sensibilities as well.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of just what it feels like to navigate in a body that can be difficult sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate your guys' time. Do you guys have anything that you would want to add about your experience, what you guys are doing next? Anything that you want to like talk yourselves up? Let me know. Just yeah. But I'm definitely out of questions. So if you guys have anything else to add, please feel free.
I would just say, to echo all the other stuff we talked about a minute ago, just don't give up. I think that's important for everybody chasing any creative endeavor. It's a struggle. It's a marathon, but definitely don't give up. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, same thing. And also, I wanted to add, take like apart from what Morgan was saying, to take breaks, like exercise, and for artists, rest your hands because that's a real struggle. You gotta do the exercise, the warm-ups of the hands,
Yes.
even if you think it's a waste of time. It really does work.
Practical advice. Love it. Thank you guys so much for your time.